Hello, hello, and greetings to each of you in your respective places. I'm hoping that you are doing well and doing something that causes your heart to beat fast, meaning something that you absolutely love. I want to welcome you to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach. Those who may be new to the platform, here we explore leadership excellence and leadership accidents. And you know that we take the liberty of spreading the love across all industries, and we're always advocating for gender equity. And with that, there's always some kind of story that is just right, literally in the nick of time in regards to talking points. And our guest today is no stranger to many of you in the St. Louis region. She was away for many years, came back by storm, transforming this community, and now not going anywhere, but tapping into a new space that we're going to learn more about in just a moment. But Emily Lohse-Busch is St. Louis native. Like I said, she stepped away, but came back. We pulled her back. Strategist, economic development professional, nonprofit leader. She's committed to strengthening the greater St. Louis region by helping to build and sustain a thriving economy and culture that benefits all St. Louisans, and even those who are visiting. She has spent much of her career studying and advising the philanthropic and social sectors, and is passionate about helping to strategize and create connections between philanthropists and nonprofit organizations that are measurably and meaningfully improve the human condition. And I have seen this lady literally, come in, learn the landscape, transform a nonprofit and the region. How are you, Miss Emily?
Oh, I am doing quite well.
Good. So we know that you came to St. Louis, back to St. Louis. How long had you been gone or separated?
So I left in 2004, 2005, early 2005. And so I'd been gone for a little bit over 10 years when I came back. And then actually for the first year or so I was back, I was still working out of DC. So I was working, I always say I was working remotely before it was cool to work remotely. But truthfully, during that time, really got a sense of what had changed, what hadn't changed in my hometown, and started to feel really pulled and really drawn to be a part of the energy that I really felt building in St. Louis to leverage all of these beginnings and all of this potential, and really, kind of, as you said in the intro, improve the quality of life, improve the economic conditions, improve life for St. Louisans. And I'm thrilled to be able to be a part of that. Was able to be a part of that for almost 5 years at Archgrants, and still getting to do that work.
Yeah, and you say St. Louisans, but the ripple effect of the work that you have done, not only for the entrepreneurs, but those of us who actually are residents, benefit from those small business owners, from that incubator that's there. Truly a ripple effect. And for me, being on the outside and being able to just tap in a little bit from the sidelines, and just even being aware and not made knowledgeable of what each of these individuals contributed to our community. We've been, it goes even beyond St. Louis, because some of the individuals have teams that may be remote in a sense, or hybrid. Tell us just a little bit about what Archgrants, what it is.
Sure.
And we can kind of build from there.
Yeah, so Archgrants it's a 10-year-old organization that I have I have had the pleasure and the honor to be at the helm of for the past 5 years. And it was founded as a innovative approach to economic development, wherein the community truly the community would rally around entrepreneurs, some of whom were building their businesses in St. Louis, some of whom were coming to St. Louis as a part of this program, and show them in real tangible ways, most notably by giving them $50,000, that St. Louis believes that entrepreneurs are the future of the region, and that in order to build prosperity, to build wealth, to build the culture of this region, we need both people coming into the region with their incredible and scalable ideas, and we need people who have those ideas here in St. Louis to stay and build here. Yeah. So that was kind of the idea in 2012 when we funded our first cohort. That was before I was with the organization. And when I came in, it was in 2017. We were at that point funding about 25 companies a year. As time went on and people started to see that this model was actually working, not just to help the entrepreneurs build, but to truly start to have a noticeable change on the fabric of the region, we continued to get more support. And by the time that I left the organization list, actually just several months ago, last year, we funded 35 companies, which was a really exciting growth. And then in this year, as I understand it, the organization is actually taking a slightly different approach and saying, instead of continuing to kind of up the ante on the number of companies that we fund, we're going to invest more non-dilutive money into each company. And I should have mentioned that the thing that's really unique about Arch Grant's model is that we don't take any equity in the companies. For startups and early stage businesses, it's quite common for them, if they go a venture capital or an angel investment route, for them to get money from investors and in return give up a percentage of their company. Anyone who's seen Shark Tank has kind of seen this, right? This model. Arch Grants, being a nonprofit, being an economic development tool, is quite unique in that we are able to distribute these funds in a way that they're grants. It's non-dilutive. We don't take any of the founders' company,
which is rare.
Right. It's rare, and it also, I think, there's something really special and really unique about that, in that it forms a different relationship between the organization and the founder, in that we have said outright, we believe in you. We believe you're part of the future, and our return on investment is your success. And so it's both this, I had the privilege of doing a TEDx talk last year, and my closing line was that what I believe is most powerful about Arch Grants, and honestly about anybody who decides to take a chance, is to be able to say to someone, I believe in you, and I'm counting on you, right? Like that, there's a little bit of like a challenge there, is that you go do your thing.
Accountability.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is what I say is missing in a lot of programs such as this, that accountability, that assessment, you know, to see that there's progress along the way. And it's not so much a big brother, but it's, again, like you said, we believe in you and we believe in you, so we're going to hold you accountable.
And the thing is right. And that doesn't mean that your business has to be a success. Many of these businesses will likely, you know, in a traditional term, fail. But what that brings to the community, what that brings to that entrepreneur, as long as there's growth there, that's a win.
And you mentioned fail, but what's so interesting, I think, and from what I've witnessed, being able to serve as a judge several years, and just to see I'm talking the breadth across industries and the depth across knowledge that these individuals are just like geniuses. But what's interesting is that there have been like spin-offs or new birthing of new ideas and new visions that complement or either sometimes substitute. Yeah, but it's still momentum, as you say.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. And truthfully, it's a sign of maturity in an entrepreneur, and any of us, to be able to say, it's neither good nor bad. It just is that the right move right now is to either move to something complementary, to pivot, to potentially just decide the best move. My passion is pulling me in a different direction right now, and to feel that and to allow that to be.
And to be okay with it.
Exactly. And that is powerful. And I think there's a lot of bravery in that. And I think that what Arch Grants intends to, there's also, and like, I just want to call this out, is that in the absence of other things that entrepreneurs have going on, there's also a fair amount of privilege in being able to do that, right? Is that to be able to, and so what Arch Grants has always and continues to try to do is to say, we believe in you, we want you to believe in yourself and be able to take that risk that you otherwise may not have been able to take. And we are literally going to help give you a runway for a year to be able to do that. And that's really what led to, because we had made the decision to increase the grant amount before I left. What led us to doing that is 10 years down the line, are we still able to help entrepreneurs take that risk they wouldn't be able to take with 50, or do we need to increase that number? And we decided we did. So we'll see.
And then not only is it that more funding, just the structure and the community that the individuals, small business owners, entrepreneurs that are immersed into. That alone, I mean, that's priceless, because not only is it giving you support, and as I said, community, but it's also giving you a built-in think tank or a built-in board of advisors, right?
Absolutely. And a connector, and it's not just in St. Louis. Obviously in St. Louis, it's very important to have connections into this region, to really feel like you are a part of it and able to build your company here. But it's everywhere in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, is that you never know where that advice or that connection is going to happen that's going to completely change your trajectory. And what I love about entrepreneurs, and what I will always in some way work with entrepreneurs, because the openness that they have to that is something that is fairly rare. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur. We
get comfortable, but we think we're taking risks, but we're in a lazy boy chair, just calling out shots. We're not.
Yeah. And it's up. Nobody wants to be afraid, right? I mean, that is a very natural reaction, but to know that, you know what, I don't know where this is going to lead me, but I'm going to find out.
I love, yeah. And I think more, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, finance manager of a mid-level company, meaning I don't care where you are on the spectrum of employment.
Yeah.
That's what we need more. And that's what was so, oh my gosh. So you invited myself and Lori Jackson Fuller.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
We came in as your special guest, and we had such an amazing time. And you separated us. And at first we were like, oh my God, we know no one here. Why is Emily separating us? Like, we need to be down together. It was the smartest thing, because we met different groups of people from different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. I was at a table with a group from Canada. And so we ended up coming back and sharing that information. And it was over 900 people in this hotel ballroom celebrating risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And celebrating founders of companies who would not have normally been celebrated yet, right?
So on point. Yes.
That's what the other thing that I think is, and this is the whole topic of the TEDx talk that I did, is that what in my career, in my life, what has benefited me more than anything, and what Arch Grant somehow does at scale, is it invests in people a little too early. like, right, a little too early that is reasonable. And there's something to that that is powerful in the confidence that it gives to a person who knows inherently, like, I can do this. I can go for that promotion. I can start this company. I can, make this job change, whatever it may be. And it says, yeah, I believe that too. And I don't know why, in some cases there's something to that is so, and you hear all the time that St. Louis is conservative and St. Louis is not is fairly risk averse. And it just kind of turns that on its head and makes people think, and then 5 years down the road, you see where some of these companies are, and it's very easy to say, like, of course, that was a great Arch Grants investment. At the time, in many cases, it was kind of up in the air. And that's really special. And I think it's special to have that happening in the Midwest. I think it's special to have that happening in St. Louis, and to happen to a set of companies that is led by a really diverse group of people. It all matters. It all helps to build the fabric. And I keep talking about, like, the fabric of this region, but as I've even gone in my next direction at post Arch Grants, like, the fabric of this region just continues to be what drives me.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You talk about the risk. You talk about the taking the chance and investing just a little too early. I love the way you phrase that. What would you say was a biggest lesson learned for you as you led this organization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the biggest lesson I learned, so I would have said, it's interesting. So that's even shifted since leaving the organization and having a little bit of time to reflect. And the thing that I think I learned early on at Arch Grants is the value of the value of what I was talking about, which is that, like, that boldness, the value of investing a little too early, of making the jump when you're not actually sure if that's the right jump to do, to actually modeling what it looks like to push the envelope. How important, one of the things I learned is how important that can be, and how much of a ripple effect that can have on others who are watching and seeing an organization, a leader taking the lead on that. And I think that's really powerful. During my time at Arch Grants, we rebranded and changed our tagline to Champion the Bold. And that was quite intentional, because it's never been about champion. I can never say the word championing. That was the worst thing about the new tagline. But
that was the accident,
right. That's the accident part. Yes, as I can't say it. But we never set out to champion only winners. What we set out to do is to champion those who had made the choice to be bold.
Whoa, put a pin in that. You never set out to be a champion for those that just wanted to take the risk. I mean, you did want to, but not the ones that you just knew were going to be a success.
It wasn't about the win.
That is powerful.
And I think it's I get really emotional about that, because that is what it is to be, to build an entrepreneur, to build something that wasn't there before. And so I would say that's a huge learning I've taken. The entrepreneurial way of thinking is another really wonderful thing that I took from this role. And then the last thing that I think I've been really doing a lot of thinking about recently is the humility that I think is inherent in different times of our lives, right? So I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and when you're in a role like that and you're out there really strong, proudly professing to champion the bold and push the envelope and model this risk taking, and then you step back because it's time for you to even take the next step in having impact. There's humility in recognizing what about the way that I was operating then created blind spots that are going to make me even better. And that's not to say that I have regrets from my time or that I would have done things differently. It's just, I think when I've been doing a lot of reading as well, and when you read about really powerful leaders, and I think not to stereotype, but I think women are uniquely good at this. It's that they have moments of pushing, moments of being really clear and focused on direction, and then moments of humility and reflection, and then you push forward even further. And I love that way of thinking about continual growth.
Yeah. And so do you feel that you've had 5 years at Arch Grants, you've transitioned and you've made a pivot, and not really a pivot because it's still in the same vein.
Right.
And the last time I talked to you, you were there.
Yeah, so, no, that's true.
But
I finally moved my desk out, so I'm not. Yeah.
Good for you. So now you're out, and what were you most taking a pause on? Taking the jump to come out of what you have become, like, celebrated for carving out this niche for this group that's being celebrated and invested in a little too early, creating a model for many who, they're all eyes were on you. And then, so what was the heartburn in regards to you saying, okay, it's time?
What led me to doing that? Is that what you mean? Or, yeah, it was, it was actually, so there were a couple things that converged. I don't think any of us can deny that the 2 years that we just went through with the pandemic. And so I think I would be remiss not to say that I'm sure that had an effect on everybody in a leadership role. But for me, I by no means was that the primary driver of this pivot, of this shift. It was, so during my last couple of years at Arch Grants, during the pandemic, I actually had the privilege of working on the 2030 jobs plan, which was a process that was being put together throughout the region. There were a number of organizations that were merging and coming together, and the whole overarching theme was St. Louis has this moment in time for the next 10 years or so where what would it look like for us to be laser focused on going in the same direction. And I felt so strongly that being in the role I was in at Arch Grants, I loved what entrepreneurs were doing. I loved so many of the things that were happening in St. Louis, but in so many instances, if you didn't know the right people, or if you weren't plugged into the right ecosystems, you never knew that certain things even were happening, and then we would duplicate efforts and all these things were happening. And so the 2030 jobs plan process that just kind of put words to a lot of what I'd been hoping would happen in terms of getting us all looking in a similar direction. And I can't say everybody, obviously, but that sort of gave that pathway forward. That was really important for me to kind of think about where Arch Grants fit in the bigger picture. And then I worked every day for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours a day with entrepreneurs, with people who naturally, it's part of the process of being an entrepreneur, of saying, This is a natural start. This is a natural end. And there's not a lot of baggage that comes with that in the startup world. It's very common to say, I'm a visionary CEO. I take the organization to this point, and then I hire someone to take us to this point, and then that person takes us here, and then we go on to the next point. And so for me, it wasn't so much heartburn about anything as much as I thought about what I had set out to accomplish in my time at Arch Grants, and felt like, wow, like I did what I wanted to do. And that's not to say I couldn't have re-upped and done it again, but what would it look like for this organization that constantly talks about fresh ideas and new ways of thinking to actively say, and we're gonna model that too. And so for me, that was just, I chose to, I can't say it. I developed this way of thinking with an abundance mindset, which is that in helping the organization get to where it's been, I served a really critical role, and I am so proud of that. And that's been the honor of my career. And I'm really passionate about this larger economic development movement happening. And wow, what an incredible opportunity for Arch Grants to continue to evolve as well. And so all of those things kind of converged, and I decided to jump and go ahead and do it. And
yes,
here we are.
I'm still like, wait a minute, but you're the face.
And that's, I hope, and honestly, it made it a lot easier once it was determined, once the board decided to bring Gabe Angeri as the new executive director, who I've worked with for the whole time I've been at Arch Grants, because I believe that he's absolutely the right person to lead the organization for its next stage of growth. So that's really fun. And then, and I've never done this. I've never worked for myself, which is what I'm doing right now. And it worked out.
It's almost like you got bit by the bug.
Oh, and that's so funny, because it is. I have, and it's because I've got 3 business ideas in my head right now. I would have, and so I have a number of projects going. I'm loving the work that I'm doing, and
Explain to us what was the pivot.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I am an independent consultant, and I am taking this next stage, and I don't know what that stage is going to look like for me.
Because that's okay.
And I appreciate that. Honestly, I still remember my conversations with you and Lori early on in my tenure, and there was a sense of peace and of confidence that both of you hold with you, that you know that it's going to be okay. And that makes me feel like it's going to be okay. So I wanted to name that, because that's always been really powerful for me. So I'm working for myself. I'm consulting, and we're really trying to build a book of business around projects and organizations that are focused on St. Louis, focused on building the region, focused on inclusive growth, and that are willing to push, right? Like that are willing to take a new way of thinking about what it looks like to build a community, what it looks like to build the economy. And so I have a couple of projects going on right now. I'm trying to carve out, and I do believe I'm going to be able to do this, but it's also really lovely because it's getting into summer, and my kids are out of school, and we've always been able to spend a lot of time together, but to have the flexibility to make my schedule what it needs to be for them, for us, is really such a privilege at this point.
But how is it really going for you internally?
All right. To be fair, it's been 3 days that they've been off of school. So it's a struggle, because you feel
guilty?
Oh yeah, and I'm sure you could see that in my eyes.
Yeah.
It's not even that. It's more just I don't know. I've never been a person that turns off work at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whenever. It's not that I'm not present when I'm at home and with my family, but I have always had the joy of having jobs that stimulate me intellectually, that I love thinking about. And that's the situation I'm in now. So I don't know if it's guilty. It's more that I am currently operating in this place where I have a really solid plan laid out. And I feel like, as any mother, like, you just laugh when you say that, because that doesn't work out. Yeah. But I have support from my mom, from my partner. I mean, we have always made it work. And this is just a little bit, this is a moment in time, because I don't know, as I said, this is a stage. So I don't know if this will be the only summer in where I'm in this independent consulting role. I don't know if this will be my future for the long term. But regardless, I want to recognize the gift that this is, and my kids are at such a fun age where to have flexibility. And that does not mean that I don't put them to bed at 8 and then, get online and work till 1. Luckily, that's never that part of it doesn't really bother me. I've always been a night owl. To ask me to get up at 5 in the morning, and it's a mess, but.
I'm glad you shared. Thank you for being transparent and sharing, how it's going for you as you transition, because you're talking about 24 hours, 7 days. I'm gonna say 24 hours, 7 days a week you're on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On, whether it's, that being for, of course, family first, but then you're at the head, you're leading an organization that is connected to so many other organizations that are wanting a return on investment in some shape, form, or fashion, but you're also building pipelines with new organizations and institutions. And then you have this cohort every year of new entrepreneurs and small business owners, but then you're also nurturing those of past. I mean, and then you have all of these, your vendors and your suppliers and your team, and I could keep going. So it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And then for that Mack truck going down the highway, 65, 75 miles an hour, and it stops. That's not, because when I switched and I did the 2-year sabbatical and just focused on entrepreneurship, it was so hard that first year just to get my rhythm. And it wasn't so much. And then at one point I'm like, okay, am I lazy? Am I not motivated? Am I not? It was just like I had to literally learn how to shift and work from a different place in regard to, here's being handed a list of priorities versus creating the list of priorities.
I think that's so important. What you just said is, I think you're so right. And it's also moving from a place of a lot of, not that there wasn't a great deal of strategy work that happened at Arch Grants, but that it's going from a place of knowing generally the direction you're going in, and as you said, dealing with all these different components to make that better and do process improvement and those types of things, to having this time to really think through. I mean, the reason that I've gotten pulled into the clients I've gotten pulled into is because they want help thinking through the big question that they don't have time, or that they need extra help to think through. Yeah. And so it is a shift in how you set your, like you said, your internal rhythm. I think you're absolutely right, is to not feel, when I spend, I used to be in meetings all day. And,
oh my God.
Right?
And the work at night.
Yeah. And to sit here and say what they need from me right now is, I have this meeting coming up for tomorrow. What they need is for me to take that hour and a half, 2 hours today and really think strategically about just not what is right there in front of us, but what are the potential pitfalls of that? What are the potential opportunities that we're not thinking of? And I love thinking that way. And it's such a joy to get to do that. But you're right, it does take a little bit of retraining, and thinking differently about your time and what is productive time.
And what's productive even.
Yeah.
And understand that you still have to make time for research, especially like, even in the space I'm in now, I have a new project that I can, that can land on my desk, and which is, well, I love it because it's all, everything is so different. However, understanding that, no, you need to, regardless of the project, I have to do some initial research. I have to do some background. I have to unearth some things. What have been the trends? What about, the competition? What about collaborations and what has been done? What's been legacy strategies that you don't want to mess with, but we want to build upon,
Yes.
what language needs to be included, who needs to be at the like all those different things. And that takes time, but it's different when you're leading that from the place that I'll say that you are now, and considering it's not the weight of all of that. And not to say that it was a burden, it's just it is a major difference.
It's a different thing. And that's when I was saying, humility is that. The other thing is, being anywhere for more than a few years, you start to have a level of expertise, and you start to really, what you know. And in many times you walk in, and when you're talking about the thing about, better than most people.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we both are all about advocacy for women in leadership. Yes. And you just said something, after a couple years, you become a subject matter expert. You should be a subject matter expert in that space. Kudos. And I celebrate you right now for saying that, because you said it and you kept moving past it and owned it. We don't do that as women. I've not heard somebody just say it out loud like that.
No, that's so funny, because I think you're right in some ways, is that we are always open to, I could know more, I could learn more. And I believe that's true. That doesn't mean that you still don't know more than a lot of people in the room but there's also, I am so appreciative of the fact that going into the projects I'm in now, I know what I know about facilitation and about strategic thinking and about economic development. There is a mountain of things that I know nothing about, that that goes back to that humility of asking questions, and of making it clear that I'm confident in what I know and what I bring to the table, but I'm also confident in the fact that you don't expect me to know more than you, because you do this all the time. And that's, I think, another shift, right? Is that going from leading an organization to working with organizations. And I'm sure you've experienced that in your many shifts as well.
Yeah. No, what would you say to women in leadership who are facing a similar path right now? Because, as we know, the Great Resignation, and women are leading that space. The power of the pivot, however you want to label it. Women are taking a moment to step back and to have a little more work-life harmony. And that is a personal definition, But what would you tell someone who's right there making a decision, but hasn't made the decision yet?
What I would say is, I think the word that you use is the perfect word, is harmony, is work-life harmony. Don't feel like it's I mean, I think it's so interesting because I believe, particularly for women, this great resignation language, I just can't say any words tonight, it seems, language is, there's also a little bit of pressure with that, right? Which is like, wait, I don't feel that right now. And I think what this has, it's hard to know, what this would have looked like for any of us without the pandemic having happened. But I think listening to your internal space and recognizing that it's okay. For me, I always said this because people would assume like, oh, you were kind of burnt out, because a lot of people are, right, after coming out of the pandemic. And I'm always very clear to say, absolutely not. For me, not that I have any judgment for people who were burnt out or are burnt out. I completely understand that. It would look very different for me if I were burnt out. For me, I am actually more on fire about potential than I have been in a long time. That harmony was starting to feel like it was a little wobbly for me. And it was, and whenever that happens, to have the confidence to recognize that and to say, what does a change look like? I think we also have, in the same way that we all, as women in particular, have a tendency to ignore our physical ailments or our whatever it may be, right? Because to recognize that very rarely makes it go away. And so there are ways to, and I think what we're all learning is that there's ways to experience professional fulfillment, professional ambition, that look a little different. And that, even as I've said, like, that even if this is something that a few months from now, if I'm like, oh my gosh, I've found the path that goes forward, that leads forward for me, and it's a full-time role somewhere, I will go into that with all the confidence that was what was calling me.
Yeah, totally understand that, because that's what I did. I did the 2 years, was planned for one, but then found my rhythm after that first year. Second year was going phenomenal. Then COVID hit.
Mhm.
It ended up getting an offer in a space that complements everything I do, even this platform. So that's why I'm grateful for you saying and acknowledging the fact that this is how it is right now and for this season. But it's okay if it looks different, because I know at one point there was, in 2020, when 2020 rolled over, it was like, oh, I can see clearly now because it's 2020. And so people were leaving, especially women of color. We were leaving jobs, and then bam, COVID hit. And we were all celebrating just the past, 3 months, this whole space about being an entrepreneur and being a boss.
Mm-hmm.
We're surprised. And so many of us are, in my circle, are back working a 9 to 5. And I'm like, that's nothing to be ashamed about.
Absolutely not. That's what I love about it. And I don't know why this comes to mind, but I always say this is one of the first things I learned about when I had my first child. Is I remember for months agonizing about the childcare situation, and was I going to do daycare or a nanny, and where was I going to do it, and all these things. And I finally, after doing, like, I feel like I went as a pregnant person and watched every daycare classroom, which is a very creepy thing to do now that I think about it. But finally decided on what was going to be the perfect place for my son. And we were there for 2 months, and it was a horrible fit. Not the place was bad, but it was just a horrible fit. And it was at that, and then we found somewhere else, and I recognized that, like, there is nothing, it sounds so trite to say it, but the only constant in this life is change. And that it's the fear of that and the anxiety it produces that is more problematic than, in many cases, the shift. So I'm now, I say all of that. That's not to say that I do not have significant moments of fear, anxiety, all of those, fear of change, all of those things. If I ever figure out how to evolve past that, I'll let you know. But
listen, please call.
Yeah. And I'm gonna start my own podcast.
So Emily looking forward to now in this space, being able to kind of call the flow in a
Yeah.
whole in a new way. What
Yeah.
what are you most looking forward to?
I am, I have this really strong, so I'm looking forward to being able to be the person that has the time to think about the idea that you can't think about because you're trying to also do 17 other things. I'm looking forward to being able to play that role. And then I am, I've always been really passionate about the role that philanthropy plays in communities. That's, if I really like could boil down my passion into one, the essence of it in terms of my professional passion, it's about that. And I think there's all these really interesting things that are happening where philanthropy is being asked to serve roles it was never intended to serve. And that there are communities that have extremely intense needs. And then there's a number of things in community that potentially would have been funded by something else. So there's just this interesting place. And then in a place like St. Louis, there's an incredible amount of wealth of philanthropy that can be leveraged to move change. So all of this, as you can tell, is still forming in my head, but I would like to start doing some writing and some like really doing some thinking about how my next stage of my career can be not just about growing the region and economic development, but specifically about how we can better leverage the resources that we have in this community to build that inclusive growth that we keep talking about.
And I love that you keep at the forefront this idea of inclusivity and the importance of it. Whether, in my talks and workshops and seminars, I mentioned whether you're ready for it or not, there's a shift, and it is happening right before our very eyes in regards to minority majority and majority minority swap.
Mhm.
And understanding that we shouldn't have to feel as if we're being cornered or pressured to try to make some changes, but no, understanding the benefits
Yep.
that come along with that. And that there are some things that we've done in the past, that it's okay, just like we're saying, it's okay to shift and to have that in which we've been so committed to, and that has become the way we do things.
Yep.
It's okay to make that change. And I believe you are the very person that can cause that shift to happen within organizations. So happy to have you in that space.
That means a great deal. And I agree with you 100%, is that there is immense potential that we miss out on when we don't recognize how the past and present systems are impacting people in this region differently. And so it's not to continue to look backwards, but it's to recognize as we build forward how we take advantage of all of these incredible opportunities that are potential that we otherwise miss out on.
Right. Emily, one word that continues to keep you smiling. What's the one word?
It shouldn't take me so long. I have so many words.
What's the one word that's carrying you through?
Authenticity.
And why is that?
Because I think that is where when we are becoming more of ourselves, is where we all find our joy.
Yeah, love that. You have the platform right now to share one message with the world. And so we usually are bending our ear and having our conversations around leadership. So in consideration of leadership and your experience with that in that space, what one message would you give to leaders as they move forward?
I think my message would be to recognize that you're still moving forward. To you get into certain positions of leadership, I think, in particularly in your career, and you feel like you need to have all the answers. And I think you tell yourself, while you're telling people who are reporting to you, that you're also telling yourself that. And I think the major thing that holds back people from becoming the leaders that they will ultimately be is not only recognizing, but being welcoming and encouraging of the fact that there's so much growth to happen in leadership roles.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. That any leadership or leader could grab a hold to move that being progressive, being forward thinking. Thank you. I
Thank
applaud
you. You were
fellow.
right. This went very fast.
Yes.
I was thinking, like, I don't know if I have enough to say for an hour.
Yes.
Turns out.
Who knew, right?
Anyone who's ever, I'm pretty sure most people who know me would say you always have plenty to say. Oh, well, thank you. This was so much fun.
This was absolutely a joy. I am so honored. Hear me when I say very honored that you would give us a portion of your time and sharing your wisdom on and trusting this platform. You could be doing anything else, and we do not take that lightly. Send you off with many blessings, many blessings as you begin to put new footprints in the sand. I know we're going to see you all over the place, and I'm excited about your future and all that you will do. Emily Lohse-Busch, thank you so very much. And we'll see you soon. Want to thank all of our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely know that there was something that triggered your thoughts, that caused a little jerk of the heart, some hard work in there. But now we also have some things to put into your hand in regards to taking action and moving forward in this space of leadership. Don't forget that you already possess everything you need to be successful, but it's success as you define it. So tap into it and live it out and walk it out. Want to thank our sponsors, KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, headquartered in St. Louis, and Sparkman Publications, and Covenant Exchange LLC. Until next time, go and